Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the soundbites. Joining me today is Eric Lamontage, who is going to be co-host with me. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just if you didn't know, Eric is Executive Director for Campaign for Vermont, who I am in partnership with on this show. And our special guest tonight is Valerie Mullin. Valerie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. She is Republican running for the House of Representatives for Addison 4. And could you give us that laundry list of...
Bristol, Lincoln, Starksboro, and Moncton.
Very nice. I just told you, I lived in Bristol. It was my first town here in Vermont. Great people in Bristol.
Great.
Awesome.
And it's a 2-seat district.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who's the other person?
Fred Baser.
Oh, okay. So he's running again?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, okay, good. So do you have any other competition or?
Well, there's two Democrats that are running, and yeah, they're
out there.
Yeah, they're out there.
All right, well, we'll tell your story. Eric, you want to kick it off with the next question?
Yeah, and I'm just going to roll it right back to you. If you could just give us a little bit of your own background and just let us know and let the viewers who you are.
Well, I'm a native Vermonter, 7 generations, and grew up mostly in Vermont a little bit. My ex-husband was military, so we were in an Air Force base. Yeah.
Which part of Vermont did you grow up in?
Burlington area, most of it, yes. And grew up very poor. I remember sitting in a hot car while my mom would clean hotel rooms as a chambermaid.
Oh, wow.
And we couldn't, of course, use the swimming pool because we were the helps kids.
Yeah, right.
So we would sit in the car while she did that. And so I know what hard work is from the very beginning. And I used to work factory jobs most of my life, and gratefully came into some money and own a chain of stores. So a diversified kind of life.
Yeah. Well, clearly you worked your way there, though.
I sure did.
Were you one of those military families that got up to Alaska?
No.
Because I think half of Bristol, for some, maybe they said, oh, these people know what snow is. They moved, a lot of the military moved up to Alaska when they were stationed up there.
Yeah, no, when I was real little, though, I was an Air Force brat. We lived in Germany and
nice.
Key West, Florida, so yeah.
Oh, let's vote for Key West, Florida. That's good. So I got this wrong, and you and I were talking about it. I found you ran for the House in 2016, but you told me you ran twice.
I've run twice before. I'm an eternal optimist that I just think that at some point Vermonters are going to know that if we do the same thing, we're going to get the same results. Right. And I'd like to think I have a fresh perspective of things that need to be done differently in Montpelier.
Have you learned from each of these campaigns what to do different? I know when I lost my run for the Senate, I figured out right quickly what I had done, what could have been done better, I guess. Not that I did anything wrong, of course. But.
I don't know that, because I worked really hard. I tried to visit every single house.
Right, yeah.
And what could I have done differently? I know I couldn't have worked harder, because I know how to work hard. But I don't think that there's very much that I would have done differently, because I did all I could.
Well, good for that's great. That's a very good place to be. And just stuff happens, and sometimes you can't account for it.
And I did miss winning by 1%.
Yes,
so
close.
It's very close.
Yeah. And you've kept very active. You sell Mary Kay, is that correct?
That's what I do for a business, mentoring other women. I'm in the top % in the nation, top 1.5%. So
Great.
I know how to work hard. It's back to that work ethic. But I'm also very I don't know. I'm a rescue coordinator for a dog rescue group.
Right, yes.
So
and just so people know, we're going to do a special show with Valerie just on her rescue dog operation, especially now because of the hurricanes and what you're doing to get those dogs up here and get them homes.
Champlain Valley Canine Rescue.
Yep.
We all can't do it all, but we all can do something.
Yes, well, if I know what I would do if I saw one of those dogs, so there you go. So anyway, just jump right in. So.
Well, I guess I'm curious. You said you're running again. You're an eternal optimist. If you were to get this position, what would be the first thing you jump into? What are the things you're hoping to achieve?
Well, what I'm hearing from people that I've heard from the very beginning is encouraging and discouraging. In other words, they want Montpelier to do the same thing that they wanted all the years ago that I was a first candidate, and that is the affordability of our state, including schools and health care. I mean, there are other issues that are important, of course. I mean, we all want clean water and air and all that, but those are the things that are still the issues. And it seems like Montpelier has done a lot of things on the social issues, but not addressing those issues. So those would be my priorities.
Right.
So jumping into some of those the economic questions of how to
Absolutely.
make our state better.
Yes, and
And I think Valerie brings up a good. These points haven't changed. And so if you ran twice, so that's 4 to 6
Well,
years ago.
yes.
And it's the same thing. Blah blah blah. It's this cost of schools. It's the cost of living here.
and it's not been addressed.
Yeah.
And I feel like Montpelier has let the people of Vermont down, the majority. I mean,
Right.
there's some that are trying, and
Yeah.
I would be one of those.
Good for you. Because I looked, you have a very good website. So good for you that you.
Well, I'm more active on Facebook,
Okay.
so Valerie for Vermont on Facebook. And what that is, and it's really not about me. It's about the issues and bringing stories from different parts of the state news into one place. So most people, they go to work, they come home, they're with their family, cook dinner. They don't have time to keep up with what Montpelier is doing. So this is just a place to kind of see, oh, I didn't know that. I
Yep.
didn't know they raised taxes. I didn't know, until you get the bill.
Yep.
And so this is just a place to keep people informed. So Valerie Mullin for Vermont on Facebook.
Good job. Well, I read where, I thought it was your Facebook, maybe it was Facebook. You have regulations, the economy, taxes, which you just talked about, and government spending, and of course, good old health care. And so what would you like to see them do in healthcare besides whatever fix it means?
Well, there's so much, but in the little time we have, I did not know this until I was running, but do you know it's against the law for a pharmacist to say, listen, don't use your insurance card, just pay cash, it'll cost less. I'd like that law to change.
I'd like you to talk about that more because I've never heard that either.
Yes.
So if you pay cash, it costs you less?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
but you don't know that, and
Yeah.
then the pharmacist cannot say, by the way, just pay cash, it'll cost you less. I'd like that gag order removed.
Good grief.
Also, right now, I could buy anything, almost anything in the United States, certainly, but across the world, I can buy things from
Right.
China directly if I wanted to.
Right.
But I can't buy health insurance across state lines.
Right.
And for a monopoly to be holding us hostage to those rates,
Right.
I just don't understand why. If I did, maybe I'd be like the people that want that to stay the same. So those would be two just really quick, easy fixes.
Yep.
And I know the other side is talking about Medicare for all, but
Yeah.
we have almost twice the cost of health care needs than a state like Utah. And so it would cost us twice as much as a state like Utah to support that.
Well, we also have a very elderly,
Well, and
myself
that's the
included, older population. I think we're second in the
Second
nation,
oldest,
right?
and we're tracking the oldest. And
Yeah.
so that's part of the reason. As we age, our needs are more in health.
Right.
And the trend is not changing.
Every day there's something new, Valerie. Every time you wake up, you check what's new. Yeah, because it is hard to get old, and you need help.
And another part of that maybe hasn't been thought through. So we have our kids leaving our state. I have 3 sons that are not in our state
Right.
anymore to find a better cost of living somewhere and more, at least, diversity in job opportunities
Right.
and higher paying jobs. And so as the kids leave, like for instance, now I help my mom and take care of my mom. Who's going to be helping those that are here?
Right.
It's going to rely more and more on the state. And that's concerning. And also, and I know this is a different topic,
That's okay.
but as the kids leave, like my sons in their 30s leave, they're taking with them their grandbabies. And so as there's 3 fewer kids in our school every single day and the costs go up, that curve cannot just maintain
Right.
itself.
Right. But they've been talking about that under Governor Douglas. We talked about that all the time, about bending the curve. And
But
I don't
think-
understand, honestly, because I know a lot of the legislators and the Democrats and they're good people.
Absolutely.
And I don't understand why they don't see, I really don't. They look at us like we're sort of a little crazy, but why they don't see that things have to change. And maybe if they tried it, if it's only a 2-year cycle, if you try it and it doesn't work, you can sort of fix it in the next biennium. So it's not like you have to wait 6 years before you do anything.
Well, I think that conversation kind of starts in the middle of the problem. why are there fewer kids in schools? Well, that's because there's 6 fewer jobs in our state every
Right,
single day.
right.
And as the kids are leaving, they're taking with them the kids. And so the children that are in the schools. And so why are people leaving? Well, it's the cost in Vermont. And so
Right,
it's starting with, the more they tax, the more people leave.
Yeah.
And so it kind of starts back at the beginning of what I feel like our
You get to
majority
the-
is doing
to
to
the
let us
root
down.
cause.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The
right.
majority is letting us down and thinking that a carbon tax is going to fix it,
Oh,
or
please.
adding all these other taxes that they're talking about doing
Right.
is not going to fix
Right.
this problem.
And I don't know how many more years the governor can say no more. And I'm a little worried about that because I think maybe 2 years is about where he can push against the envelope, or it might go up a little bit. But I think he would certainly try to control it. But you can only do that for so long.
Well, and that's why every seat matters as far as the House and the Senate.
Right.
Sometimes people, there's some people that are upset with the governor about this or that, but there are 2 people to choose from, in my opinion, and if you don't vote, you're making a choice.
Right.
And
I like that line.
He needs a veto-proof House
Yeah.
to be able to support the control of the spending.
I've always wanted to see us get a line item veto. A lot of states have that, I think. I think that's something maybe Campaign for Vermont could talk about. That line item veto really makes a lot of sense because you don't want to throw out the whole thing, because if you bring it back, who knows?
Could be worse.
It could be worse because they could start, moving stuff around. But if he had a line item veto, that would certainly make people look at every line and have a discussion and say, is this worth it? Is this going to do what we want it to do? And maybe have a discussion rather than looking at the total amount of the budget. Is it, because all they're concerned about, in my humble opinion, is how much more is it than last year. And you look at the total amount, but what you really should do is look at the line items that got to that amount.
Where that's all allocated.
Right? I mean, because we don't discuss line items. We just, it's just 2% above last year. Oh, well, then it must be okay. Well, maybe not.
And another thing that I would love to see looked at is a zero budget every year.
Absolutely, I
And
agree with you.
Because, there might have been a glitch, like for instance, when there was a hurricane in a state, there might have been a more need for something.
Right.
So 2% more from the previous year doesn't necessarily mean that was conservative spending.
Right, exactly. I agree with you. And they've looked at zero-based budgeting before, because right now, I don't know, at the end of the year, if I'm in a department, and they will base my next year's budget on what I end the year with. So what you try to do is spend, because you don't want a lower budget, because if they're going to give you a 2% increase on 80,000 rather than 100,000, I mean, it's obviously a lot more than that, but I can't think in big numbers. So, you want that $100,000, so you go out spending it.
And maybe some of it's frivolous, and Vermonters cannot afford that.
Right, I agree with you. I like that zero base. I don't think we've talked about it much. I think we should get together.
That's an interesting, that's an interesting
the line
topic.
line item veto and the zero based. A lot of companies do it, and it really forces you. You're looking at this year, like Valerie's on. What's the situation this year, and what do I need to get through the year as the director of whatever, or commissioner of whatever.
Yeah, I admit to not being very fluent in the topic to speak on it very well, but Campaign for Vermont runs everything through the litmus test of, is it accountable and is it transparent, and perhaps something along that line.
Well, it would make
be
you really talk
fall into
about the
that.
budget and what you spend your money on. Because Valerie's right, one year you may have a hurricane that may push your budget up, but that doesn't mean next year you're going to have another hurricane, especially when we went through Tropical Storm Irene.
Absolutely.
Good grief.
Yes.
Good grief. So anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more on that one. I just, now you got me all up on the single line item budget there.
So you're out talking to people. How are you communicating to people? You said Facebook. Are you knocking on doors? And tell us about how those interactions happen, how they go.
I am door knocking every single day I can. I mean, obviously, there's some days that I'm here instead of door knocking, but I try to be out every single day. And I'm not going to get every place because it's
You have a big area.
a big area, and it's very, it's not like Burlington. I can just go to the next
Right.
house. I mean, there's some like deer camp roads, and I don't even know if it's like a house at the end, and surprise, it's on a mountain and all that. But it's interesting that sometimes my political party comes into play. It's interesting to me. I met a gentleman who is working, he has a very nice pension and is working at a store to pay his taxes, a senior citizen. And when he found out I was a Republican, that was concerning to him. And for me, I have voted Democrat before. To me, it needs to be, this should not be a D or an R thing. This needs to be a Vermont thing. We are in this together, and we need to fix this together. And I don't look at anything outside of Vermont. That whole circus is beyond what I can do anything about. Focusing on the people of those 4 towns, and listening, a lot of listening. And it's sad almost in the way that it's almost redundant. The same story this year, the same story that it was, all those other years ago. And it's kind of disheartening that Montpelier has let these people down.
Yeah, and those are hardworking people over there. And it's a mixture. There's a lot of farms in that area. Do you know when I first moved here, and I would get sad, and I would get in my car and go west and watch the sunset.
It's gorgeous.
I mean, seriously, you come from a very super part of this state. It's really
Absolutely.
beautiful over there.
And hardworking people. Yep. And it's discouraging, not just for the people of our 4 towns, but I know the people of our state, that the more you work, the more you should be able to keep. Not the more you work, the more you're taxed.
Right.
And the stories, oh my gosh, there was a senior citizen lady, when I knocked on her door, that she was filling out an application to borrow against her life insurance to pay her taxes.
Oh my
and she
word.
said, now they have it all. I don't even have enough to leave my kids to bury me with. Senior citizens are being forced from their homes. How is that saving the state money?
Right.
Not because of health or not because they want to leave, but because they can't afford to stay. This is
And there's no way for her
unconscionable.
to go for any relief, is there? I mean,
Well,
if
and
you're
I know
genuinely
there's-
down to your life insurance policy and you have no other way to go, there's no relief anywhere, is
And
there?
I know it's adjusted for income, but it is never enough.
No, right.
It is never enough.
No, I agree with you. So you're going to fight for the economy, the environment, and that sort of stuff. And
Well, those are all issues that I think
yeah.
are common sense issues. I'm a Vermonter. There's no Vermonter I know that wants dirty water and dirty air and all those things.
But the thing is, the cost of these things is just astronomical. And I think if the legislature, they seem to pick the easy things that everybody can relate to, like straws. That's my favorite one these days, to eliminate straws. But how about eliminating the phosphorus in Lake Champlain? That's another whole story, because it's so huge. And
Well,
they seem to push it aside because it's too big to tackle with, but they better get serious.
Everything in business. I used to sell thread, and there was a thread cabinet, and 80% of your sales comes from 20%. So 80% came from white, black, and ecru thread. So women know that stuff.
Yeah.
But you have to have the rest. So just like in cleanup, there's that 80-20 rule. 80% of the problem is coming from 20% of the area. And so instead of all this, focusing the money where the worst problem is
Right.
seems to me responsible.
I like that answer. Good deal.
Yeah, we can't just keep kicking the can down the
No,
road.
we have been.
The problems get more expensive the longer we put them off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nothing gets cheaper over time.
No,
You
not at
don't
all.
even have to change it. Just leave it the way it is, and it'll get expensive.
And the farmers, I think, are doing as hard a work as there is on this earth.
Right.
And then to add this other thing to them, they're really trying, in my opinion, from what I've seen
Yeah. And they
what
want
I
a clean
hear.
environment too.
Absolutely.
That's their livelihood.
And so we need to just stop the blame and let's figure this out
Right.
together.
Good for you. Good.
Oh yeah, it's my turn. So I'm going to give this a little bit of more of a personal question here. So as coming into and becoming a new legislator, what's your day one? You walk in, it's like being the first day of being at a new school, right? Like what are your concerns? What are you going to be most nervous about?
I think, to me it's an easy question, that the fear that the reputation of Montpelier is true. That unless you are with a certain political party, they don't want to hear from you and they don't want to learn anything that you know. And I think that would be the saddest thing. not for me, but for the people of our state that want something done differently. That's why I would have been elected, to try to work a different path for our financial stability and spending and schools and all that. That we don't want to learn with each other how to fix this.
It's just being completely stifled by paradigm.
It's really changed over the years. I was floored watching last year. There's just none of that compromise, none of that. The best bill is the third bill, your bill, my bill, and the compromise bill. It's not
And the
there anymore.
balance. And also, I've heard about committee chairs not letting any discussion
Yep.
when there would have been some really viable things
right.
that they could have learned, even if they didn't accept the testimony. Do you not want to learn from people? Act 46 is just an example. I mean, learning all you can on how it's going to impact some of these schools.
Because maybe you don't change it, but maybe you tweak it to make it. I remember they would ask me, because I came from state government, Gay Symington did this once in a while, would ask me to read a bill and make sure it's workable. I could have completely disagreed with the bill, but I was willing to read it and offer suggestions. So when it got to those over in state government, you can actually do it. Because sometimes they, without any thought of implementation, they throw it out there and you're like, wait a minute, I have to implement this, and it's not implementable.
The other thing that I think is really important is to speak with the people closest to the situation. Do you think that maybe before they change this insurance situation or whatever, school situation,
Yeah.
whatever, speak with the insurance agents, you know,
There's a
and say,
concept.
how is this going to impact the people that
Valerie,
you know?
that's radical, be careful.
To me, there's just some common sense
Yeah.
that's lacking. And I know they take testimony, but then they pick and choose who they want to take testimony. And so, speaking with the most people that are closest to the, speak with the teachers.
Right.
On teachers have some good ideas on how there could be some cost saving that
Yes,
have a
they do.
little
If
impact.
they're given the opportunity, they
Absolutely.
do. They do.
And I've spoken with teachers,
Yeah.
and so whatever question there is, the answer is usually to the people that are closest to the situation.
Good deal. So could you tell the viewers, you've got a couple of people running for 2 seats, why should they vote for you and not the other folks? What do you bring to the table that's unique to Valerie?
I'd like to think that I can bring some common sense back to Montpelier. Being a person that's been in Vermont most of my life, I mean, like I said, with military
Right.
travels.
But that's an honorable move, so we like
I won't
that.
apologize
Yeah, no,
for it.
don't
I'm just
apologize for that.
explaining.
Yeah.
I like to think I know the old-fashioned Vermont, and that's why my motto is Vermont values. The hardworking people that want to be able to keep their money, that want kids to have a good education in schools, that want the best for what it is that that they're working for.
Right.
That's what life should be about. You work hard and you enjoy the fruits of those labors, not what I feel is happening now.
No, you're right, right?
And I'm going to put you on the spot again here.
Yeah, that's my favorite question.
It's the age-old question. It's definitely happened when you have, even within a party, have differing opinions on an issue within a party. So when your own constituency is divided on which way an issue should be addressed or how an issue should be addressed, how are you going to tackle that problem when half your constituency is pushing for one thing and another is pushing for another?
That's a really good question. So I would try to learn everything I could, and I would always read a bill. In the past in our district, something happened locally with a dump, and they didn't even read the bill, so they didn't realize how it was going to impact locally. So making sure that you read the bill, and if you don't understand it, asking lots of questions. But back to what your question was, going to the people that are locally that know that answer maybe better than I do and learn from them. Whether it's healthcare, going to a doctor and saying, how will this impact your practice? Or whether it's going to a teacher, or going locally as close as you can to the problem and saying, well, how is this going to impact you?
Deferring to the experts.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's sometimes there have been some really volatile issues up there, and
Yes, there has.
I was there for one of those, and I sent postcards home to every single, even the husband and wife, because in my house we had two different opinions. We could have canceled each other out if it was a vote. And it was very interesting. People like to be heard. They wanted to be heard.
And
And I think as long as you can explain your answer to them.
Absolutely.
You know, if they're on the yes side and you came down on no, but no because here's why.
And
I think they're always okay with that.
And I think too, as long as they understand, they're okay, like you said. And so that's why my Facebook page is important to me. I was not on Facebook before
I'm
the
addicted.
campaign, but to be able to share with people and let them share with each other.
And that's a great idea. I'll have
Communication.
to read it more for. I know we are on Facebook, but so we've got 2.5 minutes left, and I don't know how long your stump speech is, but if you want to talk to the folks who are listening in and give them that 2-minute, you know, you're in an event and 17 people are lined up, and you've got 2 minutes to say who you are and why you should vote for me.
Well, I'm going to refer back to Governor Scott's 631. 6 fewer jobs in our state every single day. 6 fewer people working. 3 fewer children in our school every single day. And 1 baby born to a drug-addicted mom every single day. And those things, if they're not changed, stay the same, our state is not going to be the state that we want to raise our children in or that they can afford to stay in. So those are the issues that are important to me, and if they're important to you, I ask for your vote.
That's great. He's very powerful with that 631. He was on our show quite a while ago, and I think that was around the time he was introducing it, and I, put that in your head. Every day, those numbers stay the same, 631.
And as our state has a small population, that has huge impact. 6, 6, 6. I mean,
Right,
that
every
is
day.
crazy. And
Yeah.
so that leaves fewer people supporting an ever-growing budget.
Right.
And at some point, this is not going to work.
Have you gotten involved in the opiate crisis over in your neck of the woods? You must be.
Well, I grew up in a foster home. We had foster kids in our house, and so I've kind of understand it from a different point of view. And the first thing that has to happen, in my opinion, for that is hope. Hope that if they get clean, things can be different.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so it's back to what would be different. Would I be able to find a job that I can support? And then the impact on the children is not just that baby and just that mom. It's the school system forever, because that child is going to learn differently and then live differently.
Right. Sort of like the why bother, right?
That's-
Why bother to get clean if?
It's going to be the same.
Because they were talking about getting people out of addiction. You've got to make sure they're in a safe environment. Just what you're saying, a clean home, food on the table, and some way to look to the future, a job that brings in money.
Right, it's not
'Cause
just
you have
about-
to respond to people's dignity.
It's not just about not just about kicking the substance, but
Right.
what structures your life
That's
can
a
have
good
after
point.
that.
Yeah, because why go through all that?
If it's gonna be the same as why you
It's not an easy
started.
thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a lot of commitment on the addict's part. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, listen, is there we have 4 seconds if you can.
Oh my gosh.
Anything else we haven't touched on?
Well, I have a Facebook page, and I'm in the phone book. If people like to call or connect with me, I'd love to hear from them.
Okay, thank you very much,
I
Valerie. Good
appreciate
look
you
out
so
there.
much.
Addison Ford.
Thank you.
Take care.
Pay attention. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, keep listening beyond the sound bites.